Hey everyone! I hope everything's been going well for you. Over here, things have been busy. It's getting a little cooler, kids are going back to school. Not that I have kids. God, no. But still, I thought it would be fun to do a back to school related project, and a lot of you have requested a backpack. We're going to do things a little differently this time though, because instead of just giving you the measurements to make a 1/12 scale backpack for a 6-inch action figure, I'll also give you the dimensions to make this in 1/18 scale that works with 3 3/4 inch figures and many other toy lines, such as My Little Ponies, Sylvanian Families, Calico Critters, or Li'l Woodzeez. As always, the list of materials you'll need to make this project will be in the video description. The steps to create both backpacks are the same, it's just the size that's different. Now this project is a bit tougher than many of my others, so don't get discouraged if it doesn't turn out right the first time you make it. I mean, I've had to make this 3 times now to feel comfortable enough showing it to you, and each time it got a lot easier. You want to start by tracing around your patterns on your fabric, then cut out all the pieces. You want to decide how you want to make the straps of your backpack. You can make them out of fabric like this one here, and you do that by taking a piece of fabric, you fold it in half, and then you sew along the edge all the way down, and then you turn the piece inside out. Now that can be tricky, turning such a small piece inside out, and that's what I did for these, but it wasn't a lot of fun. An easier method would be just to use some ribbon for the straps. It doesn't look as realistic, but it'll save you a lot of time. And for the ribbon, I'm just using some 3mm wide ribbon. Now because I'm using cotton fabric, which will fray, as you can kind of see already, some of these are starting to fray, I'm just brushing on a little bit of Mod Podge on the very outer edge. And this isn't going to show up anyway because it'll be on the inside of the backpack, but hopefully it'll prevent some of those little threads from going everywhere. And I'm going to do the same with the tips of my ribbon, because those like to fray too. And I know I'm going to get some questions if you could actually just glue the whole thing instead of sewing. Well, the trickiest part is along these curves here. And so I tried to glue that part down just to see how it would turn out. And you might be able to make it work if you just glue small sections at a time, but I wasn't as patient and I glued too much at once, and you see I got this weird pucker going down when I try to turn that fabric inside out. The glue I used was this Arlene's OK to Wash, and well, you can see I'm starting to peel it up right just using my hands. It's not going to be as strong as if you sew it, so just keep that in mind. You're going to need to be really gentle if you do try to glue this whole thing. And one thing with my patterns is I left about 1/2 centimeter of seam allowance along the edge of each piece, so that when we sew, for example, this right here is going to be the front pocket, we're going to sew along a line like this. So we're not going to be so close to the edge so that you don't have to worry about the fraying as much. Now for the front pocket, we're obviously not going to sew the top, but we don't want this ugly cut edge here on the top showing. You can see where it's kind of fraying. What we're going to do is we're going to fold that edge down. And so you're going to have a good side of your fabric and a bad side. Now the bad side is hopefully the side you traced your pattern on. I probably should have mentioned that before. Trace your pattern on the bad side of the fabric. So that way your pencil marks are going to be on the bad side and won't show on the front side. So here are my pencil marks. So I'm going to fold down this front flap about like that. And then I'm just going to sew a line from here all the way across. And if you don't know how to sew, I suggest you learn because it's a really handy skill. I do have just a quickie guide on sewing on my how to sew pillows and blankets video from, boy, maybe last year? Probably last year. I'll put a link to it in the description. It's pretty easy. You just, needle goes up, needle goes back down. And then you just tie your knots in the end. I'm going to try to make my stitches straight and in a line, but you know, just do the best you can. We're not sewing ball gowns here. It really doesn't matter. So here's the front pocket of the backpack. And that part is this part right here. So next we're going to sew it on this front panel of the backpack. And the front panel and back panel of the pattern are the same. So just take a pick of one and take a look and see which side's the good side. That would be this one here. And we're going to sew it on the good side. And what we do is we're going to fold the edges of the pocket in a little bit. And you can use some pins to help you hold them in place. Line the pocket up so it's not at the very bottom. You're going to leave some seam allowance down there. And center it on the sides. And then we're just going to sew it on. While I'm sewing, let's take a look at some photos by viewers who gave some of my previous projects a try. First up is Booyakasha Creations, who has a channel of his own here on YouTube featuring stop-motion animation. And he made the energy shield, and he modified the techniques from some of my other videos to make his own web straitjacket. JRQ has been super productive and made several projects, including the arrows, coils, lightning, optic blast, and a cape. Then Dax Toys made the Optic Blast project. Double J McNeven made some adjustments to my energy shield project to turn it into a web shield for Spidey. Undead Hunter Johnny Cage from Instagram made the bed project, and he put it to good use in a stop-motion video called Normal Spider-Man Morning on his YouTube channel at Pringleman. Art King 3000 shared this image from his Deviant art page of a fabric posable cape for Thor. DC Marvel on Instagram made a custom phone that Wolverine is about 2 seconds away from breaking. He should have never gave his number out to Deadpool. Kuzer Mox made the posable chain weapon for Ghost Rider. And finally, Recon Figures on Instagram made some green arrow arrows. Green arrow arrows. We should also do some other projects so I could repeat things like boomerang boomerangs or Falcon's Falcon. I don't know why that amuses me so much. I'm just in one of those moods. Let's move on. Thanks for sharing your pictures, and great work, everybody. As for the rest of you, if you try any of my projects, I'd love to be able to share your photos too. Just give me a link to them in the comments down below, or send them to me on social media. Just remember to say that I have your permission to share them. And now our front pocket is on, and you can actually put something in there if you wanted to. Next, we're going to work with the back panel, which is the same as the front panel, except this one doesn't have the pocket on it, and the bottom piece. Now what I like to do is I like to fold these in half at the bottoms and mark that with a pencil, just so I know where the halfway point is. And again, you're going to mark these on the bad side that already have your pencil marks on them. And that just helps line them up. Now for the rest of this backpack, after sewing the front pocket on, you want to make sure that you always have your good side of your fabric and your good side touching each other. So that way the bad sides with your pencil marks are both on the outside. And we're doing this because once we sew along here and the whole backpack is done, we flip it inside out. And you want your good side of the fabric on the outside. And now that I have these lined up, I'm just going to sew along the edge here, starting about 1/2 centimeter in from both sides here. And maybe I could just make a mark to show you. Just a straight line from there all the way over. So now that I've sewn the bottom of the backpack to this back panel right down here, what I need to do next is sew along the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric and I'm just going to kind of fold it like so that it follows the contours of the corner. And I'm just going to put a couple stitches until I get about 1/3 of the way, and then I'm going to stop and we'll do the next step. Okay, so I have my couple stitches there, and what I need to do next is take one of these small pieces of ribbon, and I'm just going to fold it in half, like so. So it makes a little loop, and then that loop is going to be placed right inside there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue sewing all the way almost to the end here. I'm going to leave about 1/2 centimeter free, like maybe that much. So that will sew that loop into place and secure the side. And so I left a little bit free, and Here's what it looks like on the opposite side. You can see that loop sticking out just a little bit. Now I'm going to repeat all those steps here on the opposite side and sew in a second loop. And after sewing the second side, this is what it looks like on the interior. Now for this next step, we're going to be sewing on the top flap of the backpack, and that will be this section right here. I find it's easiest if we start the next step with the ribbon handle. Try to center it the best I can. And I'm just going to sew those two ribbons in place just so they're not sliding around on this next step. Okay, so now I have the handle in place. You can see I just attached it with a single stitch on both sides for now, mostly just so it's not slipping around on this next step. And I'm going to take this top panel of the backpack and I'm going to line it up here in the middle. And I'm having the two good sides of the fabric facing each other. So that way when we flip it inside out, it'll look like that, with our seam on the inside. I find it's easiest if I start here just at the middle and then work my way down the side, and then cut my thread and start over and work my way down the other side. And this step is also probably the trickiest to sew just because we have such a curve here to follow along. So the trick to that is you're going to put a couple of stitches following the curve, and then we're going to adjust the fabric to follow the curve a little bit closer. And one thing that's really easy to forget is once you get to maybe about this point right here in the curve, where it just stops curving and starts becoming straight again, you want to put in one of your long straps for the backpack. And I just kind of lay them across the backpack like so, and sew them into place. And so I follow the curve almost all the way down to the edge of the fabric. But before I go too far down, remember this little gap I left here? What we're going to do is I'm going to continue sewing until I reach there, and I'm going to then move across. Here, let's try this with a pencil. I'm going to continue sewing, and then I'm going to move across and sew all the way here, attaching the two flaps together. And here's what the backpack looks like after that step. You can see I sewed along the side, and then I switched here and sewed there, connecting those two flaps so that when it's turned inside out, it looks like that. And I'm going to repeat those steps with the other side, making sure I remember to insert the other strap there. And here's what the backpack looks like with the side sewn on. What we're going to do next is sew on this front flap with the pockets. I'm going to make sure that the pocket's on the inside. And I find it's easiest if we start down here at the bottom. And then we'll sew up the sides. But again, we're going to leave a little bit, maybe that much, unsewn. So we're going to stop right there on both sides. And now we just have one step left. We're going to sew on the last flap. And that will be this piece that curves around here. And again, I'm going to find the central point and mark it with my pencil. So right now I'm just lining up my two pieces of fabric, and I'm making sure that the good side with the pocket and the good side of the fabric are touching each other. And just like this other piece, I'm going to sew along, starting at the middle, and then I'm going to make my way across here on this flap to connect. So I've made my way around, and now I've reached this flap part here, and so I'm just going to pinch that and sew across it. And I'm also just going to overlap these two flaps here of the backpack just a little bit. And now I'm going to repeat that process with the other side. And now we're ready to turn the backpack inside out and see how it looks. Now for completing the strap for the backpack, you have a couple of options. Your first option is you could just thread the strap through the loop at the bottom, try it on your figure, and then just sew one stitch to hold it in place where you want, and then you could trim off any excess ribbon if you wanted to. A second option will allow the strap to be adjustable so that it can fit more than one figure. And to do that, we're going to attach some jump rings. You're going to need a total of 4 of these, and I got these from the jewelry aisle of the craft store. Both Hobby Lobby and Joann Fabrics have these. And you're going to need 2 pairs of pliers to open up these jump rings. You just hold them on either side, and then just gently open them by twisting. And then you repeat the process in reverse to close them. And I'm going to put 2 rings per loop here on the bottom of the pack. And then to thread the strap through, you just kind of want to fold the ribbon in half with your fingers, like that. And then grab both the rings and thread the ribbon through both rings at the same time. And I'm coming up from underneath the rings, like so. And you want to make sure your ribbon's not twisted. Then separate the two rings with your fingernail. And this time I'm going to thread the ribbon through the ring that's the closest to the middle of the backpack. So I'm going to pinch that ribbon in half again and slide it through the second ring. And so now when the two rings are close together, it's a pretty secure fit. But when you separate them a little bit with your fingernail, you get adjustable straps. So here's the completed backpack. And it just closes by pushing one lid of the backpack on top of the other one, like so. If you have trouble keeping it closed, you could always put in some little magnets here on the interior of both of the top halves to get it to stay closed better. But I find mine stays closed just by the friction of the fabric. Let me know if you like having the measurements in more than one scale. It's more work for me, but if enough people think it's beneficial, I'll try to continue it in the future. And if you haven't got enough crafting fun, feel free to check out my playlist of crafting for action figures and other toys for more project ideas. And if you want to stay updated for future projects, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated. Thank you all for watching.